Hello, hello, hello. All right, I'm back. So I see Facebook is going to keep acting up. That's okay. I'm not, this is one of those days that I get to put this information out. So I'm going to take the time to do it. Facebook can keep acting up. I'm going to keep trying. And eventually I'm going to get me that, what's the other, Instagram? Does Instagram do better? I don't know. But at any rate, I'll try to chop this stuff up and put it together. For my people in Para mi gente in Argentina, yo hablar inglés ahora, ok, disculpa. Pero otra vez yo quiero hablar vos en español, pero ahora necesita hablar mi gente en Estados Unidos, all right? But otra vez yo quiero hablar vos. All right, for my people in, thank you. Yeah, we're coming into a new year, and yeah, so I'm bringing it in. I just want to put these things out that I've been meaning to put out. And so I'm going to go ahead and continue because I was talking about the history. And if you haven't caught the other two parts, please go back and check those out. Last part, I was speaking about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and why they're not valid documents. All right. Let me just go into what treaties are. All right. Treaties are contracts that are signed between two ones that deal with a particular tract of land. Now, a treaty can only be valid if the original people of the land sign that treaty, because once again, this is a contract. Now, we talked about the Declaration of Independence. That's a contract. And it deals with land. But one of the things is when we look at the Declaration of Independence, there are no original Americans that signed that document. Now, I put up a list of the treaties that took place between the original Americans and Britain. And the reason why I put those up is because, this gives us the opportunity to go and see for ourselves what was really going on in history. The ancestors are speaking in these treaties, and this is what we should be looking at. And so that way there's no, my story, their story, his story. No, the ancestors speak in these treaties. These are legal documents that were made between the original Americans and the Britons. And these were Moors that were coming over here. Once again, they weren't Caucasians or Albions. They were melanated people. And I went through what, again, it's a verb, and it means to do something on a ship. Look up the term moored, M-O-O-R-E-D, and M-O-O-R-I-N-G. That deals with the ship. Now, most of the people who were coming into, all the people who were coming into the Americas, especially from Britain, they were sailors, Moors. They ended up being termed Moor because they were on ships and they did work on ships. And so the vast majority of them happened to be melanated. And so this is why you got this term being applied to all melanated people, and they're trying to make it seem like, oh, Moor, it means black, it means dark skin. No, it doesn't. It means a verb about what somebody was doing on a ship. Now, let's understand this, because again, most of the people who were sailors, they were Moors. They were melanated, rather. And we got to understand at this time, the Queen of England, we're talking about the 1600s. So the Queen of England was melanated all the way up to the mid 1800s, melanated. And so when we're talking about these people who are doing this business, these are not Caucasians. These are not Albions. Albions were being brought into the country as slaves. That was their status. They were not of a high status. As a matter of fact, any person who was non-melanated, those were black people. I'm not going to get into a lot of the terms that we're taking on in this session, because I got another session where I'm going to go through all these terms that we as melanated people are using that we need to stop using for legal reasons and even spiritual reasons. But they're bringing in black. All right, black has to do with, it is a status to this day. Black and white, they are legal statuses. If you are considered black, you are someone who is not indigenous to the land. You are illegal to the government. Had nothing to do with skin color. It had nothing to do with any of that. It had to do with your legal status in this land. If you're white, you were a ruler of the land, because that's what white meant, ruler of the land. It meant purity of blood. It meant that you were indigenous to the land and hence not illegal to the government. All right, so now those are the terms black and white. Now let's get back to it, because I was talking about the Declaration of Independence, which is a document, once again, that was never signed by any of the original people. Then we have the Constitution. Now, the United States of America Republic government was supposedly started in 1777, and it was supposedly incorporated then. And so the Constitution that governed that, the original, what they call the organic Constitution, it was the Constitution for the United States of America, not of, the Constitution for the United States of America. And we need to understand the difference, because the Constitution of the United States of America that everybody knows today is a fraudulent, fictitious document. But then so was the original as well, because not one original American signed the Constitution for the United States of America either. So look at it. When you look at document, what you're going to see is a whole lot of more names. All right, the Constitution for the United States of America, and those are all Moors that signed it. Those are not the original Americans. Those are not the original people of the land. And the reason why I posted all of those treaties is because when you look at those treaties, then you can see what the original people of the land were calling themselves. Now, let me state this again, because I stated it before. The original people of the Americas were the people who today are running around calling themselves Black and African American. The original Americans made bad deals with Britain and subjugated themselves to Britain. They agreed to pay taxes. They agreed to be citizens of these colonies. And once again, all of these colonies were nothing more than companies and corporations. Go back and look up the Virginia Company. That was one of the first ones. It was here in 1600s. And it is the same company that you know today as the state of Virginia, because it is nothing more than a company. And so when we understand this, then when I get into the legal stuff, then you can start understanding why you stand above these corporations. Okay, so when you understand that they're all just corporations, all states, state of Virginia, state of Texas, state of Florida, they're corporations. And so we have to understand the difference between them. So getting back to how the Constitution was, and I told you the Moors, once again, are the ones who set up what we know as counties. All these counties were set up by Moors, and counties were set up to count down, all the other entities that were going on. Now, this was in conjunction with the Moroccan government. They were kind of loose people, so to speak, kind of like, the supposed Britons that were trying to come in and take over. Now, what I need to get into is, as we move up into the 1770s, 1789, all right, what we need to understand is there was a change that's not being discussed. And again, this is why I talk to people, please do your own research, because there was something that took place in this country, in the Americas rather, between 1777 and 1789, where there was the Moroccan, the whole government came into effect, all right, whereby remember, Britain had already been in the land since the 1600s, but all of a sudden, in 1777, 1780, Moroccan Empire had started requiring the United States to pay tribute to do business in the land. Wait a minute, who, what, why, what, who? See, understand this, because again, Britain had been in the land doing whatever just running roughshod over the original Americans. These people running around calling themselves Black and African American. They had been running roughshod over these people since the 1600s. Well, all of a sudden, in 1770, around the time of the Constitution, all of a sudden Morocco had started requiring tribute from the United States. Now, let's understand this. I know this is going to confuse some people, but when you go back and look at the Constitution for the United States, and also when you go back and look at the peace and treaty friendship between Morocco and the United States, you're going to understand there are two United States. There is a United States of America, and then there is a United States, period. Now, at this, inside of that peace and friendship treaty, that United States was just upper and lowercase United States, but there's two United States of America, and they make it distinct in that peace and friendship treaty. Go and pull them up and read them, because when I start dealing with Moors, they want to bring up these contracts, and I'm like, well, bring them up, because I'm going to shred you. Because these documents, first of all, they're not signed by the original Americans. Second of all, when you read them, you're going to find that there's two different United States of America, which deals with all of the land inside of the United States and all of the corporations within the land, the territory. And then you got the United States, which was your British Moors who had created that. That deals with, right today, we're talking about the Washington, D.C. That's a whole nother United States. So, but at that time, they didn't incorporate. The United States had not incorporated, but the United States of America had incorporated, and that was being run by the Moors. All right? So now we got the Moors running it from 1777 up until 1789, when George Washington came into play. Now let's understand this. There were several, at least 6, according to my research, presidents before Washington, and they were all melanated. From my research, they were Moroccan. All right? But when George Washington came into play, again, at this time, Morocco was seizing the ships of anything coming out of Britain. These British Moors that were bringing in slaves that had been seized, and they would take the ships and they'd steal the slaves and sell the slaves as their own profit. And it was really it was heavy on them. And so this is why they begged for the Peace and Friendship Treaty, which came around in about 1789. Look up the Peace and Friendship Treaty, and then you're going to start seeing why it came into play. They were begging for mercy. These British Moors, or whoever they were begging for mercy because the Moroccan government had somehow come in and started taking over. Now, here's my thing. This is another question that I have to keep asking, because they want to. These Moors, they want to tell you, oh, this is the Moorish Empire, this is Morocco, and this is Okay, if this was Morocco, I have to ask the question of how is it that, we've got this whole war going on between America, supposedly, and Britain. What was Morocco? What the hell was the Moorish Empire when they're fighting this revolutionary war, or this war that took place right before the Declaration of Independence? Where was Morocco? Where was they at that time? If this is so much of Morocco's territory. So I'm saying, if you're going to tell me this was their territory, then they should have been in here helping fight. But where were they? They weren't. They didn't step on the scene until 1789. That's when we first start hearing about Moors and Morocco and all of this. That's when we first start hearing about that. So again, and I've said this before, I put up plenty of posts, the Americas do not belong to a Moroccan empire, first of all, because it doesn't even exist. It doesn't even exist. Where is its sultan? Where is its landmass? Where is its government? Where is the president? Where is it? It doesn't exist. So it does not belong to Morocco. And it does not belong to a Moorish empire. And then if, like I said, if they want to keep claiming, oh, it's always been a part of Morocco. Where the hell was they when Britain was in here in the 1600s building all these colonies? Where were they when, again, the wars went down and they weren't fighting? They didn't come on into any kind of existence in any documentation until around 1789. And then this is when we can see when the British whose ships they were stealing were they were begging for mercy. Please, stop. We can't pay you the treaty. We can't pay you the tribute. But see, what they had to do, what the British had to do, because at this time, you got to remember, the Queen of England was still, because George Washington was a crony for England. He was a traitor, but he was making it seem as though he was not working with Britain, but truly he was. And here's the thing, Morocco knew it. Morocco knew, as a matter of fact, see, this is the thing, like a lot of people want to throw these Moors, they want to throw this document up in my face. What is the name of it? The George Washington letter to Morocco. It says, George Washington said, we want to thank you for being, he says to the Sultan that these are your territory, and we want to thank you for it. Now watch this now, because the Moors will be quick to point out, look at paragraph 4. And this is in paragraph 4, where George Washington is kissing the butt of the Sultan, and he's saying, oh, thank you for helping us out, blah, blah, blah. Well, in that same paragraph, what George Washington also says is, thank you for helping us. He's telling the Sultan this of Morocco with this guy named Proctor, because Proctor, somehow the Sultan had helped with Proctor. Now, Proctor was the person who was leading the biggest expeditions against the original Americans. He was Proctor when he was trying to abolish the original Americans. And this is, when you look up research and find out who Proctor was, his whole mission was to find them and kill them, the original Americans. So now you got George Washington telling the Sultan, appreciate you for helping me out with Proctor, who was the one who was helping to kill off all the original Americans. So this is why you're going to show me these documents. I'm going to shred you with them, because again, when we see these documents, we see there are many different groups of people. And at this time, I have shown you 3 different groups of people: the original Americans, the British Moors who were fighting with the Moroccan Moors, or the Moroccan Moors who had them in a headlock. And so these British Moors had to find a way to get some breathing room until they can regroup, because what was happening is they were still working with England. All right, and so in their working with England, because it was undercover. And still to this day, people don't know and understand that, you know, Washington was a crony for England, and that the United States belongs to England. I mean, it's so twisted and sorted. I mean, we have to start doing our research so that we can see what's really going on. But at any rate, Washington, or by this time, we've got the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. And once again, we've got the Moroccan Moors. Now, again, understand this. This country is being run at that time. We are talking about the 1770s, 1789, 1790 by melanated people. And the main people running it at that time were your Moroccan Moors, who were now at this point making deals with other nations to bring in Caucasian women as concubines. What did I just say? They were making deals with other nations who wanted to do business in the Americas. That, okay, if you want to come over here and do business, you got to give me some Caucasian women as booty. That's where the term booty comes from. Give me some booty as tribute. And so they would bring these Caucasian women in, and the Moors, these Moors we're talking about now are Moroccan Moors, will put them in bathhouses where they would be naked, and the Moors would go in and out of them, raping them at will. Look up Moorish bathhouses. Look up, once again, the white slaves in America. Look up Daughters of the American Revolutions. You're going to have to dig deep, because those were the Caucasian concubine. That's where that group comes from. Because what was happening is, you know, a lot of people ask me, well, how did we fail if we was running everything? How did we fail? Well, check it out. Because what was ended up happening is that when these people, these other nations sending these Caucasian women in, they were training them to raise up in arms. They were training them in arms and weapons and how to fight and battle so that they can eventually rise up against the Moors. That's what they were doing. And so they're sending these women into the land, and the Moors ain't thinking about, you know, all these women gonna raise up against me. They just think about getting some ass. That's all they were thinking about. And so you got these women who are coming in, and then the next thing you know, again, you've got all of this infighting. Again, you got the original Americans, you've got the melanated, the colonists, because some of the original Americans were colonists. Some of them stayed, you know, Indian, calling themselves Indians. Then you've got the British Moors, and you got different fractions of them, because some of them really wanted to be a part of the Americas, and then some of them were still working with the Queen of England. Then you got the Moroccan Moors, and again, some of them were breaking away from Morocco, and then you had Morocco, the continent, trying to claim the land. So, I mean, you've got all these different melanated people fighting against each other. And then when it was time in the mid-1800s, as we moving up to that, because when it was time for the Caucasians to come in, everybody was fighting against each other. All melanated people, it was easy for them to come in and take over. It was disarray. So let's look at this, because when we got the Barbary Treaties, because again, the history we're told in school is that, oh, Caucasians had us for 400 years and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's another lie. But Caucasians ain't been running anything but 150 years at the most. The mid 1800s is when they took over. Before that, it was the Moroccans running it, the Moroccan Moors. All right. And again, before that, they were making deals with other nations who wanted to do business, and it was Barbary Treaties. All right. That took place between 1789 and 1836. Why were the Barbary Treaties in effect? Because again, these are people who wanted to do business in the land. They would do treaties. Now, note that none of these treaties were valid because these Moroccans didn't own the land. They had to just try to claim title. And see, at this time, we got to understand Morocco was a muscle. Morocco had taken over Spain and Portugal and Italy and, of course, North Africa. But again, they had been pushed back because by that time, Spain had kicked them the hell out. Spain kicked them, and some other nations had kicked them out, but they were still strong in North Africa. And so they go in, so they come into the Americas, and they've got some military might. So when it came to pushing over the British who were running the United States, the colonies, it was easy for them. And so they were just claiming the land like, oh, this is our land. Because it's ours, just because. And they were very barbaric. And so all of the Moors, they were just barbaric. I don't care if they were from Britain or from Morocco, they was brutal. And they were barbaric, and they would take over territory. They were just land stealing thieves, pirates. That's what they were. And so they come into the land, and then again, by this time they're claiming it. And we look at the Barbary Treaty to 1800, 1830s. Like I said, they lost their reign in the mid 1800s. So let's move forward to the mid 1800s rather, the mid 1800s, where, you know, at this point there's this change. Let's understand this, because during this time there were so many things going on in the mid 1800s that this is where the big turning point was. I mean, we had the Moor lynchings. You know, when they show you all those melanated people being lynched in the Americas in the mid 1800s, and they want to tell you they were slaves. They were not. They were Moors who refused to give up their land and their wealth and that's who they were. Because at that time in the mid 1800s, there was melanated lawyers, judges, bankers, landowners, slave owners, everything. That's who the melanated people were in power. How do we know this? Well, look, let me help you understand something. When we, first of all, and I'll try to stay on track with this, but when we jump forward to the 1900s and we go back and look at the records in the counties, we see that the land was in the name of melanated people. Caucasians didn't own that. When we look at the counties, they had to be set up with, what do we call them? Charters. Those charters are in melanated people's names. So we're not, again, if we just do little research on certain things and stop trying to read everybody's stories in their books and do our own research, we see somebody telling us some lies. Because you want to tell me about 400 years of slavery and we've been enslaved. Well, the original slave was Caucasians. We go back and look at, like I said, white slaves in America. Just look that up. Look up what was going on in Staten Island. I mean, with those Staten Island slaves. It was Caucasians that were your original slave. Just look up the etymology of the term slave, and you're going to find out who the original slaves really were. So we got, you know, the lynchings, we got the period of Reconstruction, Civil Wars, Lincoln's assassination, the Dred Scott case. All of this stuff is going on in the mid 1800s. The period of Reconstruction being that time when history was being rewritten, because by this time the Spanish had started coming in, the French had started coming in, and they were taking over. And it was easy for them to shut down the Moors, because by this time, again, everybody's fighting against everybody. And the Moors had already done brought in these, what I call Trojan horses, these women who were concubine, and sexing them and creating other breeds of people. These people that they call Native American today that the media shows you, and Indian, those ain't the original people. The original people were copper-colored, wood-haired people like this, all right? These are original people of the Americas. Now, getting back to this, again, I want to talk about the Dred Scott case. They want to make you think that the judge was a Caucasian or Albion, and they want to make you think that this melanated person or this Dred Scott guy, and he could have been, I don't know, African or whatever. But the deal is that the term African is synonymous with the term black. And the term black and the term African were terms that Moors knew never to associate themselves with. Why? Because they didn't have anything to do with skin color. They had to do with status. And so if you're calling yourself African, you're saying you're not indigenous to the land, hence you are black. Black people were people who were not indigenous, and you don't have certain privileges or rights. Let me rephrase that. You don't have certain rights when you are considering yourself to be black. And so this is why you hear me using the term melanated for now. You might hear me using the term carbonated, because the term black has nothing to do with skin color. It has to do with status. And at that time, black people were your Albions and your other slaves that are coming in from what we know as Africa. But let me help you to understand something, because remember, a lot of Caucasians were being taken from what we know as Europe. Well, Europe was Africa. When they would bring the Caucasians or Albions, see the term African and we automatically think dark skin. Same thing with the term Moor, dark skin. Well, guess what? That's not how it was originally. And so now, because we don't understand the etymology and the history of these terms, we're calling ourselves things, and we're not. And I'm going to go through that tonight. I'm going to do it tonight. I'm doing my marathon, so maybe 1 or 2 people are up. I don't care. I'm going to do the marathon, but I'm going to go through all these terms that we're using, and we're not understanding the etymology and the history of them. And they've become political terms. African. That really originally was referred to the Caucasian. All right. So let me move on, because we've got I said the Dred Scott case. But the thing is that it's highly unlikely that that judge was a Caucasian. It's highly unlikely. He was likely a Moor, right? Because Caucasians didn't take over until the mid-1800s. And that's when they started phasing out the Moors. Well, the Dred Scott case was in that time period. All right, and so again, because we're not doing our research and we're believing the narrative, the whole 400 years of slave, and we just the descendants of we're the descendants of the slaves. And see, when you say that, you're saying you're descendants of a Caucasian, because slave means Slavic. And when you say that, they know you don't know who you are. All right. Let me move on, because there are a couple of other things that I want to hit on, and then I'm going to shut this down. But again, I talked about the charters, and I talked about the fact that the land, even up until the 1900s, were in the name of melanated people. All you got to do is go to the county, and we see that. So now help me. This is the thing that we got to start asking questions. How is it that you're telling me that Caucasians been running things since, or they brought us melanated people over to the Americas as slaves, and somehow in the 1600s they brought us the melanated people to the Americas as slaves, and somehow by the 1900s, melanated people had acquired all of the land in their name. What the hell was the Caucasian doing to let us get all the land in our name? These melanated people that come from Africa, supposedly they couldn't read, they couldn't write, they were discombobulated, they didn't know the land, they were slaves, but somehow these supposed slaves that all these melanated Americans, folks calling themselves African Americans and Negroes and colored people and what else, black, somehow these people come from all the way over here from Africa without being able to read and educate, and somehow the Caucasian allows them to end up with all the land in their names. How the hell that happened? Okay, it doesn't make any sense, because that's not how it happened. And just like I said, do your own research, because you're going to find out Caucasians ain't been running stuff except for the mid-1800s. That's about 150 years ago. All right? And you're going to find out that those melanated people who was being lynched, they were not slaves. You can tell when you see some of the lynchings or whatever, look at their clothes. If they got a belt on, what damn slave you know is wearing a belt? Check the clothes, check the cuffs in the pants, check all that. Because those were Moors that they were lynching, who were refusing to give up their land and their titles and their slaves and all of that. All right? And so then you had the Caucasians or the Albions that were taking over. They would just step in and take the name. If, you know, Smith, the Moor, who was a Moor, and Johnson owned all these slaves, because yeah, they owned slaves. The original Americans owned slaves. And I'm telling you this because we have to understand what we did. If you want to understand, again, now I'm going back to the universal laws. If you want to understand what this whole fight and battle is between melanated and non-melanated people, well, you go back and understand that you are your ancestors. And the fact that melanated people was enslaving them in the land first. Why is it that incarceration is the highest in the Americas than it is anywhere else on the planet? The highest in the Americas, North America for that matter, than anywhere else on the planet. Well, then you got to understand there must have been a lot of enslavement going on, and it was. And you know who was being enslaved? Caucasians. Now, like with universal law, it comes back. Who's being enslaved now? In these prisons? You melanated people. Turn around. It's fair play. What they say, karma is a bitch? No, she ain't a bitch. You made her a bitch. So we got to understand what is really going on. And this is why I say we have to understand who's who did what the Moroccan Moors do, what did the British Moors do, what the original Americans do. All of these are melanated people, different groups of melanated people that played a role in the shit that's going down in the land today. And until you understand who you were and what role you were playing, then you're going to keep running in circles. And to close out, I need to say this because, you know, we're constantly talking about Moors, I'm a Moor. See, they got themselves all these names, but whose name are the original, are the patents in? The land patents are in the names of the original Americans. And who were the original Americans? See, all they keep talking about our forefathers this and our forefathers that and the Moors this. Well, let me tell you something. The original tribes in the Americas were matriarchal. And until you pay tribute to the foremothers, there will be no peace in this land. And I don't give a damn what you're trying to claim until you pay tribute to the foremothers of this land and call them by their names. You will not get no remedy in this land. You're going to be forever fighting. Respect the original people of the land, honor the mothers, the foremothers, and then we can start moving forward. Dee Marie, I'm out.